everyone. This is a quick introduction into nonfiction theory and what's it all about. So nonfiction is a type of prose, so a type of writing that deals with real people and events. So characters, settings, and events must conform to what is true. So the story cannot be manipulated by the writer's imagination. So it has to stick as close to the truth as possible. There's a few types of nonfiction. The first one is a biography, which you might have heard about. And this is the account of someone's life written by someone else. So if someone was writing a biography about me, they might do some research on me or interview me, and then they would write about me. The focus of a biography is the character, their career usually their place in history, and then the uniqueness, so what makes them unique, or the universality of their experience. So, what is something in their experience that everyone could relate to? Characteristics of a good biography: an accurate presentation of the life from their birth until their death, and there's a real honest effort made to interpret the life to offer a unified impression of the character. So, you want to make sure that in this, that the person stays consistent throughout, or the things that are changing are true, first of all, but then make sense. An autobiography is a type of biography, but it's written by that person about that person. So I could write an autobiography about myself. So usually what happens in an autobiography, it's usually in a chronological, so in order. It's usually narrative, which means in almost a story-like format, but it's not necessarily considered a story because there's true events and true accounts. The author usually relates their life story to crucial historical events just to anchor, where they are in society, or why things have happened to them, or why they think certain things have happened to them, or decisions they've made. And then the author offers personal evaluations of actions. So they'll talk about why they made specific choices or actions, and then might speculate on the significance of these actions and events. So then they will make guesses about, how that influenced them, or how that might have affected them in the future, or something like that. Then there's essays. So this is hopefully something you've heard before, being in an English class. And these are examinations of a subject in prose, either expressing a personal or a really limited view of the topic. It's really focused in, it's not a big research paper. It's a shorter piece of prose that examines a subject. So formal essays, those are more serious in tone and subject and have a more objective point of view, which means personal opinion is hopefully pulled out a little bit. Due to the serious nature of the topic, there's much less creative language in a formal essay. We use more formal language. In an informal essay, this has an informal tone, as the author is usually speaking directly to the reader, and there can be a little bit more use of creative language here. So in informal essays, the purpose of them are to either to entertain, to inform, to explain, or to persuade, and so we'll talk about each of those. So for example, the first type is called an exposition, which means it's informing. So the writer's main purpose is to inform. It's the most objective type of nonfiction because there's no personal attachment to the topic. Facts are presented as neutrally as possible, and author's opinion on the subject doesn't intrude. So if I were to read someone's exposition, I shouldn't be able to know what the author thinks about the subject in terms of their opinion. Persuasion. This attempts to influence the reader's ideas of actions. The major purpose is to convince the reader to think, feel, or act in a certain way. So trying to inspire the reader to do something. The writer usually selects and arranges the facts so that the reader will share the writer's opinion. So I'm writing about something that's really important to me. I'm hopefully going to put stuff in there that'll help you to think the way that I'm thinking. And it'll only be successful if the reader believes that the facts support the writer's opinion. So again, this is nonfiction, so there still needs to be facts in here, or truth, to support the opinion that's being given. Description. This presents a picture or an impression of a subject. It might recreate for the reader a person, place, or an event, largely through language that appeals to the senses. So let's say we were talking about going to a carnival. We could write about oh, this is the first experience is going to a carnival, and you would talk about the five senses in order to explain that experience. So when I say the five senses, we're talking about smells, taste, touch, sound, and listen. And then the last one is narration. So this author's purpose is to relate a series of events. Again, these are usually in chronological order. They have the form of the story, but again, the events are factual and actually recorded. There may be characters and there may even be dialogue, but again, these characters are real characters or real people. So lastly, there's some other kinds of writing that we can talk about. So we have journals, diaries, oratory, and psalms. I'm not going to go into journal and diary, but an oratory is a formal speech intended to inspire action. A psalm is a lyric composition of praise, usually within sacred themes. So you might see this in like a religious text. Sermon, this is a formal discussion, usually oral, of a serious subject for the purpose of religious instruction or urgent advice and recommendation. So sometimes leaders of countries might give a sermon. Letters, that's pretty straightforward. Aphorism or proverb, this is a brief statement of usually one sentence that expresses some truth about life in terse, easily remembered form. So Gandhi, for example, has many quotes. Sometimes we call these quotes that could be considered proverbs. And then an epitaph. This is what we usually see on a tomb or a headstone. So that's a quick introduction into nonfiction. Have a look at a little check your understanding quiz that comes after this. And if you have any questions, as always, reach out to your instructor.